and almost, man, this guy's as timely as it gets, isn't he? Just as we finished our ad read, jumping into the waiting room is former Super Bowl winning Raven. That is Femi Ayan-Badejo, friend of the show. He's posted up in his offseason. I'm sure he's knowing him. He's working on 15 different side projects, but look forward to reconnecting with him right now. Fem, give us the thumbs up when you're good to go, and we'll bring you in. We're going to talk team building. We're going to talk about the debate that you and Sarah have been going back and forth on. We've seen you in the live chat. We're looking forward to seeing you now in person. How you doing, dude? How's your offseason?
Doing good, guys. Really appreciate it. I love watching you guys' show. It's so awesome to watch your guys' evolution over the last couple of years. You guys are crushing it, and I'm happy to participate today. You guys know I'm always watching. I got eyes everywhere. So, yeah, thanks for having me on.
We do know you're always watching. We see your comments. I see when you agree and disagree and everything in between. But one place that you and I'm not quite sure what your stance is, but I thought a good way to jump off or a jumping off point is this morning, Jeff Zrebiec talked about all the different ways that the Ravens could create cap room, which they are going to need to do. And of course, one of the many things he listed was the potential of either releasing, trading, or extending tight end Mark Andrews. He said it's probably the biggest decision of the offseason for Eric DeCosta and the Ravens because he's the fourth highest cap hit at $16.9 million. I don't know that anybody's advocating that you just straight up cut him. Nobody wants to do that. That would create $11 million, but so would a trade, which Jeff is saying potentially could get the Ravens a day 2 pick. Now, I'm not saying for sure I want that, but I get why that's a potential opportunity to say, hey, you know what, in a couple years, or excuse me, at the end of 2025, both Likely and Kohler and Mark will all be free agents. You can't re-sign them all. So maybe you go ahead and try to get a draft pick out of them and some cap space this year. But correct me if I'm wrong, Femi, it sounds like you're against that and you want to keep it as it is with all 3 tight ends this year. Let me know what you think.
No, I mean, I think we need to use a scalpel here and not an axe, right? So The first thing that is you and I agree on 99% of things that are discussed. Like, I think we agree on a lot of things. I think that the part that I took issue with is more of his value and is he a clutch player and will he continue to be a clutch player going forward? Like, that's the specificity of our debate. Yeah. What you're talking about is a business decision. That does not involve any emotion at all. So I will never be a prisoner of the moment. I will never devalue a player for a mistake they made in their most recent game and their most recent play. I always have a telescope and a microscope, and I use them equally at the same time. I can kind of juggle these things, with multiple views. So to the business decision of what you're saying, I have no issue with a level-headed business decision.
Gotcha.
The thing we have to keep in mind about the Ravens and what makes the Ravens great and what makes NFL teams great in general is what I call the 4 C's, right? Culture first, coaching second, continuity third, and the cap is fourth, in that order. Because to me, if you don't have culture, you have nothing. If you don't have coaching, you have nothing. Because you can bring all the players you want in, but if you don't have those 2 first things in place, it doesn't matter. We've watched teams that are talented absolutely dissolve under pressure, right? The Ravens have been able to survive and thrive because culture, coaching, continuity, and the cap have been measured and handled appropriately. If we're looking at Mark Andrews under those 4 C's that I talk about, I can understand either A, basically ripping up his current agreement and creating a new agreement, basically where he takes some kind of pay cut. I'm probably for that based on a number of different things. But I also have to keep in mind that we invest in running backs and tight ends more than we invest in wide receivers. This is a nuanced thing. This is not a binary thing. So we're not going to invest the same way in a number 3 receiver, the way that we invest in a number 2 tight end. We're going to invest more in that number 2 tight end based on the nature of our culture, our coaching, and the way that we execute our offense. So to me, when people talk about, well, go get another receiver, well, that's not what we do. We don't go get receivers. We go get tight ends and running backs. So if you're going to, and offensive linemen and defensive linemen and pass rushers, right? Like, we all agree on what the needs are. We need a game-changing pass rusher, but that's neither here nor there at this moment. So under kind of this rubric that I go by in regard to how to build a team and how to strengthen this team, I think that you move hell or high water to keep Mark Andrews, because in my opinion, who are you going to trade him to? You can't trade him to a team in the division, first of all. You don't even want to trade him to a team within the conference, in my opinion. Like, I think a team like Kansas City with Travis Kelce's issues, Mark Andrews could go there and who knows what would happen. You know, we would all be looking at this a year from now being like, oh my God, we just gave them a solution to a massive problem. And I don't think Mark Andrews is out of his prime yet. I think he's still in his prime when we look long-lensed view at what he's done. He is the third highest rated PFF tight end in the NFL since he's been in the league. He is number 2, 3, or 4 in every category in games played, yards per catch, touchdowns, and receptions since he's came into the league. That's who this guy is right now. And that PFF grade, last year, I believe he was 4th in PFF, 4th overall. So we're talking about a guy who's top of the food chain at his position still. And I know nobody, you know, former players, and I don't want to ever compare myself to another pundit, another fan, or another player. I'm just saying for me, I'm the purplest drinking, purplest wearing, purple lens viewing person you're ever going to meet. I'm an optimist. You guys know that about me, right? So even with that being said, I can still look at somebody and I can still put my business cap on and say, what are the ramifications of making this decision? Does it make sense to trade this guy? And what are we going to get back in return? And how does it affect the offense? And how does it affect Lamar at the end of the day? Because I think to a man, if you go into that locker room, I don't know this for a fact, but this is the hill that I'll die on. This is the shield or the sword that I'm going to fall on. There's nobody in that building that wants to get rid of Mark Andrews. Now, are they open to finding some ways to save some capital? Are there some opportunities to keep him and Isaiah? Look, Charlie is great, and I met him in person. He's awesome. But I can't say Charlie, Mark, and Isaiah all in the same sentence. It's Isaiah and Mark right now. That's what I'm concerned with. So yeah, let me stop there for a minute, but I hope I answered your question. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm not ready to give up on him by any means at this point.
Yeah, no, I think that I think we're kind of, as you said, on the business side, on the same page. I mean, I'm just looking at the dollars and cents, and like, listen, if they keep Mark Andrews, I think he will be extremely productive. I've definitely said that before. I mean, he's the franchise leader in touchdown receptions. Like, you don't just, take an axe to that just haphazardly, right? When you're talking more about like, where can they get money? There's very few places. And I mean significant money. So they have about $6 million, which won't even sign your draft class. So you can go ahead and extend Marlon. You can extend Derrick Henry. You can do those extensions. It's still not going to be enough. You would either, in my view, need to trademark, or you got to find a way to extend Lamar Jackson sooner than later, because those are the two significant places that you can get it. But so would I like be angry if the Ravens held on to Mark Andrews? Absolutely not. Where I think, as you said, if we're taking a scalpel to it, where you and I disagree, I've lost trust in Mark when the game is on the line, when the season is on the line. And it wasn't just because of the Bills game, although that certainly was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. But there are past games that I can look back to and say, in the clutch, you didn't come up big. And so
Tennessee
to me,
game, right?
What's that?
The Tennessee game.
I think there's a Steelers game in there. And so to me, it's like, I'd rather call, if like we need these points, I'd rather call Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Isaiah Likely, maybe Zay Flowers before I'm going to call Mark Andrews, because I've seen him, drop the ball literally or fumble the ball too often in those clutch moments. But do I think he could be massively productive again? For sure. And I'm sure Lamar wants him back too.
Yeah. See, I can't, this is where you and I definitely disagree.
Yeah.
This dude is clutch. There's no doubt about it. It's unfortunate. The games that you're talking about, there's like 3 of these games. Like, there's not 30 of them. There's 3 of them. You know what I mean? There's not enough of a sample size to say this dude isn't clutch, because I can point out 25 games where this dude made leaping, diving, catching touchdown. In the moment, I promise you, as a former player, no one is thinking like, this is a divisional playoff game. This is an AFC championship game. This is a regular season game. You're just out there trying to ball. You can't think about all that at the same time. It's unfortunate, though, that he has not delivered when it's mattered most. But Zay didn't either. You know what I mean? Zay had one opportunity in an AFC championship game, and he did not deliver either. Yes, he made plays in that game. But Mark also made plays in other games, too, that were big games. So, to me, I think that let a player learn from their mistakes. My thought is that if you give him more opportunities, and let me even go back a little bit further. As a franchise, from coaches to players, we have not performed well in the biggest games lately. That's a fact. Okay. Everybody involved. So I don't want to single out Mark Andrews, because I don't think that the situation or the plays are too big for him. It's just unfortunate that what happened most recently kind of falls on him a little bit. You know, it does. I get that. I understand that. But I don't think that it's because it's too big. I just think that mistakes happen, and unfortunately they've happened when it's mattered most. The thing you can't do is have 5 skill guys out on the field and think your quarterback's going to be like, okay, these 3 guys are viable, these 2 aren't, because that dude fumbled last time and that dude dropped the ball the last time. No. All 5 are live at all times. You can't say, like, I'm going to single out one guy because I'm worried about what happened before. That's not how games are played. That's not how athletes play. Everybody is live and viable. And if you don't think a dude is viable, and when you project out the most intense situation, the most vital play, if you don't believe all 5 guys on the field can make that play, they should not be on the field. Let me say all 11 guys. If all 11 guys can't make that play when it's required, then that dude should not be out there. And I just don't think that's Mark Andrews' profile for me. I've seen him make too many good plays. I've seen him overcome too many things personally and on the football field, that to think that he is not mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually prepared to make every play when it's required, I just don't believe that. And there's no way for us to settle that other than if he comes back and the situation presents itself again. If he fails again, then we can start to maybe swing that pendulum a little bit further. And if he never executes in a big play, then I guess ultimately it's going to be something we're going to have to look backward on, though. I don't think I'm ready to get there yet, but I understand why you were there, and I respect that.
Hey, and Sarah, one thing you mentioned that we probably haven't reiterated enough is the Lamar impact on this. Like, that is the ultimate security blanket. They've been together as draft classmates since the moment they came in together. You better believe that he's going to use his voice behind closed doors, right? We all agree with that. Even if this was a thought from the front office, which we don't know if it is, potentially moving on from him, that he would have the strong vocals, you would think, about keeping him and keeping that security blanket at his disposal. Fem, can we shift gears to another team building decision that looms? Obviously the new league year is coming up in the next few weeks, and you know what this tackle market.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Sure.
I'm looking at this dude, Adam 78. Yeah, I'm petty. I'm gonna call you out, bro. I see Adam 78 in here. Does this guy understand likely could be better than Andrews? It's not about who's better. You need 2 tight ends, bro. Do you understand depth? Do you understand the fact that we are a 2 tight end offense? And you're not going to go draft some kid and think he's going to step in and fill Mark Andrews' shoes. So yes, I understand all of it, and it does not change my opinion. Do your homework, son.
He's looking at the live chat, Adam. You better,
do your homework, son, and then come holler at your boy.
Hey, you know what, too? Sarah and I don't always have the time to monitor. He's looking over at that live chat and spit.
I mean, he's saying the dude's not listening. Like, he's saying this guy wants to let Mark Andrews walk for. No, I'm not saying any of that. You're not listening to what I'm saying, bro. Let's keep it moving. This dude is
let's go. Yeah. All right. I
will just say it because it came back through Adam. I will just say this. I hear you that all 5 guys out there, obviously as a coach and as a player, you're going into it and saying, I can make the play when the game is on the line. I agree with you there. At the same time, I think we can all be realistic that there are levels to it. And so, if I had Jamar Chase out there and Isaiah Likely, I might be like, okay, I'm going to Jamar Chase. Or excuse me, I was going to say Jamar Chase or Zay Flowers.
No, just
because he's got that big body, right? There's levels to it. And so if I have a level of confidence in my gut, and it's like you said, you can't resolve it because trust ultimately is something that you feel over time. And for me, it's kind of chipped away from Mark, and for you, it hasn't. And I respect that also. But they're all levels to it. And so to me, it's like you have 2 yards to go. Am I going to do this with Mark Andrews again? Or am I going to try to stuff, and again, the context matters and the defense matters and all of that. But I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's time that I call Derrick Henry in this moment instead of Mark Andrews. You know what I mean? So I get all 5 need to be prepared. All 5 have to believe. The coach has to believe in all 5. The quarterback has to believe in all 5. But there is levels to it. And to me, Mark has been hit in those levels for me and my trust.
Yeah, I think that's where you and I disagree. And like I said, we're not going to, it's cool. Yeah. I get what you're saying. I just think that his number is going to be called and it should be called. And you're kind of like, maybe we should run an isolation play where the primary read is Isaiah or it's Zay. And I get you on that. So I feel you. And ultimately, what's going to happen is that all 5 dudes are going to be primary at some point, right? It's going to be bait. It's going to rotate around a little bit. But I think what rips our gut out, right, and rips our heart out is that the right play was called, and I think it was to the right guy, and the play just wasn't made, and it happened twice in a very short period of time, unfortunately. And yes, and we're all gutted over it. So like we don't disagree on that. We all want what's best for this team. That's where we all kind of, I think the Venn diagram of decision and hope it's all still there, right?
So another big decision that obviously looms in the coming weeks is Ronnie Stanley, who's set to hit free agency, successfully had a resurgent season. This is a player that, is all pro caliber franchise left tackle who has, you talk about recovery and overcoming adversity, like you mentioned with Mark. I mean, think about the severity of that ankle when you weigh and you have the stature of a 6'6", 300+ pound player, and he has successfully built himself back up into exactly that, a franchise left tackle. Let me just float this scenario out to you, Fem. I would love to get your kind of gauge your appetite on it. The idea of this positional flexibility that I'm sure they saw in Roger Rosengarten.
Yeah. Stellar
first season, we all agree, at right tackle. The idea, if the market commands the way we think it might, dictates Ronnie Stanley with big time money in the coming weeks, and the Ravens choose to move on from him, would you be comfortable with Rodgers sliding down to left tackle, re-signing McCary to potentially be your right tackle for the short term, drafting another tackle, and sticking Voorhees at left guard and continuing with the experiment that we've all watched and had opinions on throughout the process, Daniel Fa'alele at right guard?
Yeah, I think you're making some real astute analysis there. And I can't say I disagree with it, because Ronnie may have priced himself out of Baltimore. He really has, possibly, right? I mean, what's funny is that what's old is new again, right? And the bottom line is I think Ronnie's getting $20 million right now, and he's probably going to get $20 million at least, based on the fact that contract that he signed is 4 or 5 years old. So he's still a $20 million left tackle, because the cap has exponentially gone up, and the value of a left tackle is what it is, right? We know what market value is. I like Roger a lot, and I definitely think Roger could play left tackle. I got to give Eric a lot of credit, because he knew this offensive line was young, and he was pretty outspoken about it. Like, he said, hey, we're going to take some lumps early, but these guys are going to figure it out. And they did. They did take lumps early, and they figured it out. You know what I mean? Yep. So the question is, do I think McCary should be at right tackle? I'm going to use Seraph right now on this. I don't have the confidence in McCary to play right tackle right now. I just don't. He could play left guard, he could play right guard, but we have a right guard now. I think he gets protected at guard. I've watched him play quite a bit of football. He's older now. He's a little undersized. I'm not personally comfortable. This is a business decision. I'm sure he's a great human. But as far as a football player goes right now, you keep him on your roster to be that swing tackle, being that swing offensive lineman. But I don't think he should be starting at a tackle position at all. He could probably make it a game or two. He can get you by as a patch. But I don't see him as a right tackle anymore. I don't see him playing tackle in the NFL anymore. Not for the Baltimore Ravens. I would prefer, and I don't want to move Fa'alele from guard, but and maybe the tackle experiment is over. I mean, he was voted as a backup Pro Bowler, right? Right. So I mean, yeah. So leave him at guard. It seems like he's found his home, and that big old body, and watching him throw men around, like, let's just let him do what he does, right? I think leaving him at guard makes sense. And maybe going out to see, is there a person with a profile that fits what the Ravens need at right tackle that's available in free agency? We're pretty good at finding offensive linemen in free agency to get you by for a year or two. I don't really want to use that first round pick on a right tackle. I would rather probably use that at a rush position, or as a receiver, or maybe another defensive back, maybe another linebacker. I'm not sure yet. I haven't done all my research yet, but I like where you're going with it. And it's hard for me to see Ronnie coming back right now in your contingency plan, Bobby, other than McCary being at right tackle. I think sounds good to me. I just don't know who that right tackle is right now, and we have time to figure it out. I think that right tackle is probably out there in the NFL right now, either unsigned or possibly on another team.
Yeah, it just seems hard money-wise to have either one of them back, Ronnie or McCary. That's the crazy part. So This is going to be year 2 of rebuilding that offensive line. But let's flip over, because you've mentioned a couple of times pass rusher. Ravens were number 2 in the league in overall sacks. Both KVN and Odafe hit that double-digit sack mark, and yet there's something that just like leaves us wanting more, which I think we're all using like the words is game wrecker. A, do you see that as a need? And B, how would you like to see the Ravens address it?
Yeah, I see it as a massive need. I think that there's too many series where there was no effect, right? Like it was feast or famine, right? And it's kind of interesting to think that we were number 2 in the league in sacks, but what were we in pressure rate? I honestly don't know the number. How uncomfortable did we make quarterbacks in the pocket on a consistent basis? Not enough, in my opinion. So, I mean, can I go get that dude at Cleveland? Can we get that guy? I don't think that's possible. We can dream, but yeah, I don't think that's necessarily possible. But there's a couple guys in the draft, man. There's that kid at Georgia. There's that kid at Texas A&M. There's some big, long bodies out there that could be game changers. I don't know enough yet. I haven't seen enough yet. But I don't think we're done in regard to finding a game changer at pass rush. I think it should be the absolute number 1 priority, because in my opinion, this team is ready. Like if you think about the thing that bothers me about the whole MVP voting, remember what I said, it's culture, coaching, continuity, and cap. Nobody talks about the amount of continuity changes that the Ravens had to deal with from a coaching perspective and a player perspective last year, and how that affected the product on the field in the early parts of the season. And Lamar Jackson was the person that steadied that ship early on, playing out of his mind to make up for issues on defense, to make up for issues on the offensive line. And people discredited him and didn't even acknowledge that there were things that he was dealing with that, and I'm just going to say this, Buffalo as a team didn't have to deal with. You know what I mean? And I won't scratch that itch right now, but I'm just saying I want to. But the bottom line is that there's no doubt in my mind who the most valuable player on the planet is, and who was the steadying force when things were at their most tumultuous. It was Lamar Jackson. And so if we're going to look at the team now and all those tough lessons they learned by starting 0-2, by having a new coordinator, by having a rookie at corner, by changing their safety play in the middle of the season, and how they were able to evolve. This is one of the most resilient teams in football. They're going to be able to build on all those lessons, right? Like, let's give guys, not just players, but coaches, time to learn from their mistakes and deploy information and strategy in real time. The Ravens do that better than anybody. I think if you just brought this team back as is, they're a top 3 team in the NFL right now. But if you can tweak a couple things, add a couple pieces, like this is not as big a rebuild as it was a year ago. Rebuild, I use that very loosely. They had a lot more things they had to fix from a coaching and player perspective a year ago than they are going to into the 2025 season. And I'm excited. And I'm not going to say this is the year. I'm not saying that. But damn, these dudes are going to kick ass and take names. And their schedule is no joke. Have you guys looked at their schedule?
Yeah.
It's bonkers. Again, they're trying to get us again. The hardest schedule in the league again. What are they trying to do? But we ready, though. We ready. Let's go. We ready.
Hey, that first place schedule, man. I got it right in front of me right now. Outside the AFC North, you got home games against the Jets, Bears, Lions, Texans, and Rams. And outside the AFC North on the road, you go back to Buffalo, you go to Miami, Green Bay, Minnesota, and friggin' Kansas City. So there you have it. But last one for me. Sarah, do you have one as well?
I do have one. Go ahead, though.
Okay. So obviously, in terms of extensions, you have some rumblings from Ian Rappaport on potentially getting out in front of Derrick Henry. I think Sarah alluded to that earlier on in the show. And then Kyle Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum are both extension eligible now. They have 3 years of service time, Fem, as you know. Do you have any kind of feel about the way the front office might prioritize business this offseason along the lines of extensions?
I mean, the easiest one is probably Derrick Henry, right? That's my guess. Kyle's going to be a difficult one, man. That dude probably deserves to be the highest paid safety in the league, right? I mean, man, he's a monster out there. Swiss Army knife of Swiss Army knives, a top 1% of 1% guy, you know, character and ability.
Yeah.
So my guess is that, and Sarah, you've done such a great job covering the cap, and you brought in so many amazing data points from different folks that are cap experts. I'm not necessarily a cap expert, so I don't spend as much time on it. But my thought is the longer you wait, the more painful it's going to be. So my thought is if you can get your young guys done, which in my opinion would be Linderbaum and Hamilton, I think you try and get them done if it's feasible. I don't know if it's feasible. And this is why I think we started the conversation with Mark Andrews and his potential cap hit. If it makes business sense because you can't afford to keep Mark and eventually sign Isaiah, and then sign Andrews, and then sign Hamilton and Linderbaum and the other guys that you want to keep, a business decision makes sense to me if you have to do that. I understand that. I don't recommend that you do that, but my point is I get the business side of it. But start with your young guys. Start with the guys that are going to be, in my opinion, the most difficult to sign, and start to wrap your arms around that. Because at the end of the day, back to my 4 C's, right? Continuity is number 3, and continuity involves players and coaches, and you want to keep your best talent. And Isaiah Hamilton. You guys got me thinking about Isaiah Likely and Kyle all at the same time. Kyle Hamilton is one of one in the NFL in regard to what he can do in a game. So you've got to find a way to get him done, in my opinion, ASAP. I don't know if you agree with that, Sarah, but that's where my head is.
No, I hear you. I hear you and all that. It's just it's like you said. I mean, at the end of the day, and people want us to debate more about, well, why isn't it the owners that give up more money? It's like, well, there's no control over that. Like the NFLPA and the owners agreed to what a cap will be.
Yeah.
And so that's like a different debate that happens once every 10 years or whatever they do when they do a new CBA. And so
the Ravens spent to the cap. The Ravens spent to the cap.
They spent to the cap.
Yeah. So this isn't about like Bisciotti being greedy or owners.
No.
This has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
What makes the NFL great is that everyone has a cap that everyone has to spend money to. And that's what makes it the best game, in my opinion, on the planet, but obviously in the US for sure, is because everyone is kind of held to the same expectation and is only allowed to deploy their capital. It's really a game of strategy. And we are one of the best as an organization at that strategic planning and execution.
I totally agree. My last question is kind of like, I'm trying to put 2 into 1 here so we can let you go. Mm-hmm. But it kind of comes back. You mentioned when we were talking about Mark, how as a team, the Ravens haven't been clutch in the playoffs, which I agree with. So my question is how is a team? Bobby interviewed Josina Anderson, and she talked about pressure management. And she said, I just know it. I can see it in people. She was a D1 athlete. She's like, I know if somebody has that dog in them. So as a team, how do the Ravens, because they're going to have 80% of their starters are already under contract. It's going to be essentially the same team. They're running it back essentially. We're talking about little things here and there, add a pass rusher. Who knows what's going to happen with the offensive line, but 80% of the starters are under contract. And so how do they get that dog in them during the playoffs? And my second question off of that is, what about coaching too? Because you have coaching in your 4 C's. You have coaching number 2. Are they doing what they need to do to get them over the hump in the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can all agree on this. I think I put a lot on the game plan of the AFC Championship game on the coaches, right? In my opinion, that's what I saw. I put this game against the Bills on the players.
Yeah.
So, and at the end of the day, this idea that like, I can see who has a dog in them. You can? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I don't know what microscope you got. I don't know what telescope you got. I don't know what kind of, UV lens you got. Cool. But, that's all well and good. But games are happening and guys are just out there and girls are just out there in their respective sports trying to make things happen when they need to happen. I personally don't think the Ravens aren't clutch. I just think they haven't performed when it's mattered most. And I don't think there's a specific reason for it. No one's trying to fumble. No one's trying to drop a pass. No one's trying to do something stupid to get a 15-yard penalty. Guys are emotional. Things are happening real fast in real time. And the team that makes the least amount of mistakes is going to hoist the Lombardi. This year, it was Philly. Sometimes shit just all falls apart at once. That's what happened with Kansas City. I am not convinced that Kansas City is going to ever be the same team that they were a year ago after what I saw. It was already falling apart internally for me. You look at how they won games. You look at how they did it. They did it with popsicle sticks and gum a couple times. And God bless them. They did it. They figured it out. No doubt about it. Pat Mahomes is right now. I'm not even going to say what I was going to say. I'm going to take that back. Lamar Jackson's the best player in the NFL. But the Kansas City Chiefs have been the best team in the NFL. The best team. Offense, defense, special team. They've been the best team the last 5-6 years. I'm not sure they're the best team anymore. And I can at a different time, dissect why it's not a culture thing. In my opinion, it's honestly probably a continuity and more of an aging thing. Like the continuity piece means the best players playing their best ball when it matters most. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that going forward. And you guys can book this now because I'm sure someone's going to bring it up later that I said this a year ago, looking forward, right? I believe that the Ravens, it will all come together sooner than later because every time you stumble, if you're a high caliber athlete, a high performer that requires something inside you that demands you to learn from your lessons and apply them. I think from coaches to players, I believe it's inevitable, right? Like Thanos. I believe it's inevitable that they're going to figure it out. I just don't see a universe where they can't. And optimism is free, y'all. It's free. I'm never going to be a pessimist. I have no reason to say, oh, Mark is never going to do it. Lamar is never going to do it. Coach Harbaugh needs to get fired. I'm not that guy. That's not who I am. Because the bottom line is we don't know until we know. We don't know until it either does or doesn't happen. And it's going to take time. So I choose to believe, based on my experience as an athlete, based on my experience as a person who writes, teaches, and talks about leadership and human performance, that they are going to figure it out because they're too good not to, from a human, like a psychological, an investment and a quality perspective. I just think they're going to be able to figure it out, Sarah. That's the best answer that I have for you. People always ask me, well, why is it going to be different this time? Well, because things evolve. Nothing is static. Things are dynamic. They either get better or they get worse. In my opinion, they're climbing this mountain, and they've been climbing it for a while. Not as fast as we like, not as fast as they like, but I think they're still ascending. There's no dissension downward, right? There's no descent downward for me in what I see. So I assume they're going to keep going up because nobody stays here. You're either going up or you're going down. In my opinion, the Ravens are still ascending.
That's one high peak, boy. What are you in the Adirondacks? They keep climbing and climbing and climbing,
man. Super Bowl, hey, the Lombardi's at the top, right? So until you get there, like, I mean, the length and distance is really different for each team. We could put each team on that mountain, and the Lombardi's going to be further away for some than others, right? It's not like we have a Lombardi each team has its own mountain to climb. And in my opinion, the Ravens are closer to a Lombardi than, say, a Jacksonville, right? You know, there's just a different distance they have to traverse. Anyway, now you got me rambling. You know what I'm
saying? You're the best, man. You can be found on X at Obafemi30. That's at Obafemi30. And anything else you got going on, please feel free to plug before you jump.
No, it's all good, man. Just follow me on Instagram or Twitter, Obafemi30, like you said. It's all good. I hope you guys bring me back. And I love chopping it up.
We love chopping it up with you. Yeah, I mean, I know I do. I know I do. So
you already know.
I'm always watching. You guys know I'm always paying attention. I'm gonna stay in the messages, you know.
Yeah.
You're the man. And we're overdue for our fast walk too, so we'll get that on the calendar at some point.
Holler at your boy. Let me know.
All right, later.
Thanks, Femi.
Former Super Bowl winning Raven, Femi Ayambadejo, who always brings it. Hope you guys enjoyed that. That was fantastic.